Hello there, my sleepy citizens. Tonight, we journey into the shadowed streets of Gotham City, where mysteries lurk and the Dark Knight stands vigilant against the forces of chaos. We bring you tales of Batman, uncovering different sides of the man behind the mask. And as our journey through these stories winds down, a calm ambience of Gotham's streets will carry you throughout the night, bringing you to restful sleep without interruptions from any ads. If you enjoy these tales, please be sure to give us a like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what story you'd like to hear next. But for now, let's get cozy and step into the world of Gotham. Rain fell in gentle curtains across Gotham City, droplets catching the glow of neon signs and street lamps before dissolving into darkness. From his vantage point atop the Gotham Central Bank, Batman watched the city breathe beneath its veil of water. There was something almost meditative about patrol nights like these, when the constant noise of the metropolis was softened by rainfall, when even the most persistent sirens seemed muted by nature's quiet symphony. Sir, I've detected another anomaly in the digital spectrum. Alfred's voice came through the cowl, barely above a whisper, as though respecting the tranquility of the moment. Same frequency range as the others. This one's manifesting on the billboard across from your current position. Batman shifted his gaze to the massive digital display advertising Gotham's latest luxury high-rise. To ordinary eyes, the billboard showed nothing unusual, just rotating images of penthouse views and amenity spaces. But as he engaged his cowl's specialized filters, a pattern emerged in the ultrasonic frequencies being emitted alongside the visual display. A QR code, invisible to human perception, pulsing just beyond the threshold of hearing. I see it, Alfred, capturing the pattern now. The rainfall intensified slightly, creating a soft white noise backdrop as Batman's systems recorded the ultrasonic signature. This was the 5th such code detected in the past 3 nights, each one appearing briefly, each one completely silent to all but the most specialized detection equipment. The Riddler had reinvented himself once again, and this time his methodology was more subtle than ever before. Pattern secured and transmitting to the cave, Batman confirmed, the water running in rivulets down his cape as he maintained his stillness. Has there been any progress to coding the previous sequences? Progress, yes. Clarity, less so. Alfred's voice carried that particular tone of measured patience he reserved for particularly perplexing problems. Each code, when translated, yields only fragments, mathematical sequences that seem to reference other sequences. Mr. Enigma appears to have constructed an elaborate cipher that builds upon itself. The pieces only make sense when viewed together, like a constellation only visible when all stars are plotted. Batman allowed himself a moment of stillness, feeling the rain's gentle percussion against his armor. Edward Nygma's latest game carried none of the theatrical flourishes that usually characterized his work. No grandiose verbal riddles, no public declarations, no taunting messages, just silent code, transmitted in a spectrum humans couldn't naturally perceive. It's unlike him to remain this quiet, Batman observed, preparing to move to another observation point. The Riddler craves audience recognition almost as much as intellectual validation. Perhaps that's part of the riddle itself, Alfred suggested. The change in methodology often reveals something about the motives behind it. Batman launched his grapnel toward a water tower several blocks east, allowing the line to pull him through the rain-soaked night. The sensation of movement through falling water created a curious cocoon of tranquility, a suspension between elements that matched his current state of mind. This case required a different kind of focus, a patience that flowed rather than forced. As he landed silently atop the water tower, his cowl alerted him to an incoming transmission from Lucius Fox. "I'm here, Lucius." "Bruce, I've completed the modified receiver you requested." Fox's voice was calm and measured, a counterpoint to the rain's gentle rhythm. "It can detect ultrasonic QR codes across a much wider radius than your cowl's systems. More importantly, it can capture and store the full waveform patterns, not just the visual representation." "You think the sound itself contains additional information?" Batman asked, scanning the digital displays visible from his new position. "I think, with Edward Nigma, we should assume every detail matters," Lucius replied. "These aren't just visual patterns converted to sound. They're complex waveforms with characteristics that might contain encrypted data. The amplitude variations, frequency shifts, phase relationships, all potential carriers for hidden messages." Batman considered this as he observed the city below. Digital billboards, news tickers, electronic bus advertisements. Gotham had transformed over the years into a canvas of light and information, perfect territory for someone like the Riddler to hide messages in plain sight, yet beyond natural perception. "I'm heading back to collect the receiver," Batman decided. "Alfred, continue analyzing the patterns we've gathered so far. Look for mathematical relationships beyond the obvious sequences, prime numbers, Fibonacci patterns, anything that might form a key." "Already pursuing several such avenues, sir," Alfred replied with that gentle hint of amusement that suggested he'd anticipated the request. "And shall I prepare some hot tea for your return? This rain seems particularly persistent tonight." Despite the circumstances, Batman felt a subtle warming at the familiar concern. Tea would be welcome, Alfred. As he made his way back toward Wayne Manor, Batman reflected on the curious nature of this case. The Riddler had always been verbose, his criminal activities as much about demonstrating intellectual superiority as achieving any material gain. This new approach, silent, patient, hidden in plain sight yet imperceptible without technology, represented something different. Not just a change in tactics, but perhaps a deeper shift in Nigma's psychological profile. The rain followed him all the way back to the cave, its steady patter against the Batmobile's exterior creating a soothing backdrop for contemplation. When he emerged into the cave's vast interior, he found Alfred had indeed prepared tea, the steam rising in delicate spirals from a porcelain pot positioned beside the main computer terminal. "The first 4 patterns, when combined and processed through our decryption matrix," Alfred explained, gesturing to the displays, where complex waveforms undulated like silent music, "yield this sequence. On the central screen, a series of numbers arranged in a geometric pattern slowly rotated in 3-dimensional space. It resembled a mathematical mobile, digits suspended in precise relationships to one another, forming a structure that seemed somehow both random and deliberate. "It's beautiful," Batman observed quietly, removing his cowl and accepting the cup Alfred offered, "and entirely unlike Nigma's usual approach." "Indeed, sir. No wordplay, no verbal cleverness, just pure mathematical relationships." Alfred studied the pattern with thoughtful intensity. The elegance suggests a mind seeking order rather than chaos. "I find that somewhat reassuring, given Mr. Nigma's historical tendencies." Bruce sipped the tea, a subtle blend with hints of bergamot and chamomile, and felt the warmth spread through him, a pleasant contrast to the cool dampness of the night patrol. "What does the 5th pattern add to the sequence?" Alfred tapped several keys and the newly captured code began processing through their systems. "Integration in progress. It may take some time to properly..." The mathematical mobile on screen shifted, incorporating new elements that altered its entire structure. What had appeared as abstract patterns suddenly revealed a suggestion of something more concrete, the barest outline of what might be a map or schematic. Computer, enhance pattern recognition and apply topographical mapping, Bruce instructed, setting down his tea to step closer to the display. The system responded immediately, refining the mathematical points into a more defined structure. That's Gotham's data network infrastructure, Bruce realized, recognizing the distinctive hub-and-spoke architecture that formed the backbone of the city's digital communications. Specifically, the emergency response grid, the network responsible for coordinating police, fire, medical services. Alfred's voice trailed off as the implications became clear. And connected to every traffic control system, power grid management node, and public safety alert mechanism in the city, Bruce finished. If someone gained control of those systems simultaneously, Gotham would be effectively paralyzed, Alfred concluded. Yet there's still no indication of when or how such an event might be triggered. Bruce studied the pattern, noting how certain mathematical nodes pulsed with subtle rhythms that seemed to follow some internal logic. We're still missing pieces of the puzzle. The complete cipher hasn't revealed itself yet. So our silent Mr. Enigma continues his equally silent countdown, Alfred observed, refilling Bruce's teacup with practiced grace. Though, countdown to what remains the question. Bruce turned his attention to the specialized receiver Lucius had prepared, which Alfred had placed on a nearby workbench. The device was elegant in its simplicity, a compact array of sensors housed in a matte black casing that could easily attach to his utility belt. Lucius included detailed notes on the operation parameters. Alfred indicated a tablet displaying technical specifications, and mentioned something rather interesting about the ultrasonic spectrum being utilized. It appears Mr. Enigma is using frequencies that, while inaudible to humans, fall within ranges that certain animals find quite perceptible. Which animals specifically? Bruce asked, already suspecting the answer. Bats, primarily. Alfred confirmed with the slightest hint of irony in his voice. Along with certain marine mammals and specialized insect species. The frequencies are particularly aligned with the echolocation patterns of several bat species native to Gotham's cave systems. Bruce allowed himself the faintest smile. So he's speaking in a language only bats can hear naturally. It would appear Mr. Enigma's appreciation for thematic consistency remains intact, even in silence, Alfred replied dryly. I've taken the liberty of plotting the locations where these signals have been detected thus far. A map of Gotham materialized on one of the secondary screens, 5 points illuminated in sequence. Bruce studied the pattern, searching for geometric relationships, known Riddler locations, anything that might suggest where the next transmission might appear. There's no obvious spatial pattern, he observed. The points aren't equidistant, don't form any recognizable shape. Perhaps the locations themselves hold significance beyond their spatial relationship, Alfred suggested. What do these 5 places have in common? Bruce considered each site: the East Side Financial District, the Robinson Park Observation Tower, the Gotham Municipal Archives, the University Technology Center, and now the luxury development billboard near Central District. Different neighborhoods, different types of structures, different ownership. They're all recent, he realized suddenly. None of these locations existed in their current form more than 5 years ago. The financial district was redeveloped after the earthquake. The observation tower was rebuilt last year. The archives moved to their new building 18 months ago. New iterations of Gotham, Alfred nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps Mr. Enigma is making a statement about transformation, his own or the city's. Bruce donned the cowl again, Securing the new receiver to his utility belt, need to find the next transmission point before it activates. If we're right about this pattern, it will be somewhere recently built or renovated, which narrows it down to approximately 1/3 of Gotham's landscape, Alfred observed with gentle irony. The reconstruction efforts have been rather extensive in recent years. Focus on technology hubs, communication centers, places where digital infrastructure intersects with public spaces, Bruce instructed, moving toward the Batmobile. And alert Lucius, we may need additional receivers deployed across the city to triangulate the next signal. Of course, sir, and might I suggest consulting with Miss Gordon as well. Her expertise in digital security systems could prove invaluable in deciphering Mr. Enigma's ultimate objective. Bruce paused, considering the suggestion. Not yet. Barbara's coordinating the satellite upgrades for the Justice League this week. Let's see what we can determine on our own first. As the Batmobile's systems engaged, Bruce heard Alfred's voice once more through the cowl. The rain is expected to continue through the night, sir. Do drive carefully. Wet roads and contemplative detective work make for hazardous combinations. The gentle concern in those words followed Batman back into Gotham's rain-washed embrace, a reminder of the human connections that anchored his purpose. As the city's lights blurred through sheets of water, he felt his mind settling into the particular clarity that complex puzzles often brought. A focused tranquility where patterns and possibilities flowed together like the raindrops streaming across the Batmobile's canopy. The Gotham Technology Corridor stretched before him, a recently developed district where startups and established tech firms had claimed territory in gleaming glass towers. If the Riddler was targeting newly transformed spaces with significance to digital infrastructure, this area offered multiple potential transmission points. Batman parked the Batmobile in a secluded service alley and ascended to the rooftops, where the rain continued its gentle percussion against his cape and cowl. The new receiver from Lucius emitted the faintest of vibrations against his utility belt, not detecting a transmission yet, but actively scanning the ultrasonic spectrum for anomalies. Alfred, I'm going to patrol a grid pattern through the tech corridor, he sub-vocalized through the cowl's communication system. The receiver should alert me to any transmissions within its detection radius. Very good, sir. I've been reviewing the mathematical structures from the previous codes, and I believe I've identified a temporal pattern. If it holds, the next transmission should occur within the next 43 minutes. Batman moved silently across the rain-slicked rooftops, the city below him wrapped in a gauzy veil of precipitation that softened its hard edges and muted its usual cacophony. There was something almost meditative about moving through this dampened landscape, senses attuned to subtle variations in the digital spectrum rather than the usual urban disruptions. 27 minutes into his patrol, the receiver against his belt vibrated with increasing intensity. Batman paused on the edge of a communications company headquarters, its roof bristling with satellite dishes and transmission equipment now glistening with rainfall. I'm getting a signal, he reported quietly, strong and growing stronger. Location is the Gothlink communications tower. Gothlink, Alfred confirmed, completed just this past January. They provide back-end infrastructure for approximately 40% of Gotham's internet traffic, including secure channels for several financial institutions. Batman adjusted the receiver's sensitivity, triangulating the precise source of the ultrasonic transmission. It's coming from the main transmission array, near the northeastern corner of the roof. He moved toward the source with practiced silence, the rain providing additional cover for his approach. The transmission array consisted of several satellite dishes and a forest of antennae, all oriented toward different sectors of the city. As Batman drew closer, his cowl's enhanced vision detected a small device attached to one of the primary dishes, something that didn't belong to the original equipment. "I've found it. Enigma's attached a transmitter to the main array. It's piggybacking on Gothlink's own broadcast capacity, amplifying its ultrasonic signal across the network." The device was elegant in its simplicity, a small module barely larger than a playing card, with no obvious control mechanisms or power source. Batman carefully recorded its ultrasonic output with the specialized receiver, capturing the invisible QR code embedded in its silent broadcast. "Transmitting the new pattern to you now, Alfred. We need to integrate it with the others immediately." "Receiving now, sir. Beginning integration process." Alfred's voice remained calm, but Batman detected the subtle tension indicating focused concentration. This one appears more complex than its predecessors. The mathematical relationships are shifting as I attempt to incorporate them into our existing model. Batman studied the transmitter without touching it, scanning for booby traps or security measures that might trigger if disturbed. The device itself might provide additional clues. "I'm going to attempt to secure it for analysis, using specialized tools from his utility belt." Batman carefully detached the transmitter from the satellite dish, maintaining its power connection to ensure the transmission continued uninterrupted. The last thing he wanted was to alert Enigma that his puzzle pieces had been discovered. "Sir?" Alfred's voice carried a note of revelation. "The new pattern has transformed our model entirely. What appeared to be a map of Gotham's emergency systems now clearly indicates a cascading failure protocol, essentially a blueprint for systematically disabling the city's digital infrastructure in a precisely coordinated sequence." "A digital blackout," Batman confirmed, securing the transmitter in a shielded compartment of his utility belt. "Timed or triggered?" "Both, it appears. The mathematical model suggests a predetermined sequence initiated by some external trigger event, and based on the temporal spacing of these transmissions, I calculate that we're approaching the final stages of whatever countdown Mr. Enigma has established." Batman moved back across the rooftops, rain streaming down his cape as he processed this information. "We need to determine how many more transmission points exist and where the master trigger mechanism is located." "I believe I can help with the first question," Alfred replied. "The integrated pattern now clearly indicates 7 total transmission points. With this latest acquisition, we've discovered 6. 1 remains." "And the pattern itself doesn't indicate the final location?" "Not explicitly, no. However, there's an elegant mathematical progression in how these points relate to Gotham's digital topology. If the pattern holds..." Alfred paused, and Batman could hear him working through calculations. "The final transmission point should be at or near Gotham's primary internet exchange facility." "The data center near Sprang River Bridge," Batman concluded. "Constructed last year as part of the city's digital infrastructure modernization." "Precisely, sir. A facility that connects virtually every digital network in Gotham to the broader internet. The perfect culmination point for Mr. Enigma's silent puzzle." Batman changed direction, moving with renewed purpose toward the eastern edge of the city, where the massive data center stood like a fortress of the digital age. The rain had settled into a steady rhythm, neither increasing nor diminishing, creating a consistent auditory backdrop that seemed to amplify the silence of the Riddler's methodology. As he traversed the city, Batman reflected on the unusual nature of this particular case. Edward Enigma typically craved attention, constructing elaborate verbal puzzles and riddles that demonstrated his intellectual superiority. This silent approach, hidden in frequencies beyond human perception, embedded in mathematical relationships rather than wordplay, represented something new, a riddler who had, perhaps, tired of explaining his brilliance to an uncomprehending world. Alfred, has there been any communication from Arkham regarding Enigma's status? Any changes in his psychological evaluations or treatment protocols? I took the liberty of checking those records when we first identified his involvement, Alfred replied. According to Dr. Leland's most recent assessment, Mr. Enigma has been increasingly withdrawn during therapy sessions. He submitted a formal request 3 months ago to have all verbal communications with staff conducted via written notes rather than spoken dialogue. He's deliberately limiting his speech, Batman observed, vaulting across an alleyway to land silently on the next rooftop, choosing silence over his usual verbose approach. Dr. Leland noted her concern about this development. She described it as a potentially concerning shift from exhibitionistic intellectual display toward internalized obsession. She had recommended additional therapeutic intervention, but the request was denied due to staffing limitations. Batman absorbed this information as he continued toward the data center, now visible in the distance, a massive structure of reinforced concrete with minimal windows and extensive security measures. So we're dealing with a Riddler who's turned inward, communicating through pure mathematics and ultrasonic frequencies. The question is, why? Perhaps Mr. Enigma has grown tired of being misunderstood, Alfred suggested quietly. Words can be imprecise, subject to interpretation. Mathematics offers a purity of expression that language often lacks. The observation resonated with Batman as he approached the perimeter of the data center complex. Rain continued to fall in gentle sheets across the facility's expansive security zones, creating a natural sound dampening effect that made his silent approach even easier than usual. Initiating scan for ultrasonic transmissions, he reported, activating the specialized receiver. Almost immediately, the device registered a signal, but different from the previous patterns. Alfred, I'm detecting something, but it's not following the same transmission protocol as the others. This one is pulsing, changing frequency in a rhythmic pattern. Perhaps this final transmission is meant to serve a different function than its predecessors, Alfred suggested. If the previous 6 established the pattern, this 7th point might be the activation mechanism. Batman moved carefully through the facility's outer security perimeter, his cowl's systems easily bypassing the electronic surveillance. The ultrasonic signal grew stronger as he approached the main cooling systems, massive units that regulated temperature for the thousands of servers housed within the facility. The signal is coming from the primary cooling control unit, he reported, examining the sophisticated machinery from which the pulsing ultrasonic pattern emanated. Enigma has integrated his device directly into the facility's temperature regulation systems. Unlike the previous transmitters, this one wasn't simply attached to existing equipment. It had been carefully integrated into the control circuitry itself, suggesting a level of physical access to the facility that raised additional security concerns. He was here in person, Batman observed. This installation required direct access to the control systems, not just external attachment, which means either Mr. Enigma has escaped Arkham without our knowledge, or he has an accomplice with considerable technical expertise, Alfred noted with concern. Batman carefully examined the integrated device, noting its considerably more complex design compared to the previous transmitters. This isn't just transmitting a pattern, it's receiving signals from the other transmission points and processing them through some kind of algorithm. The trigger mechanism for his cascade failure protocol, Alfred confirmed. Sir, if I'm interpreting these patterns correctly, this device is designed to initiate a synchronized shutdown of critical systems across Gotham's entire digital infrastructure. Power grid, emergency services, traffic control, communication networks, all disabled simultaneously. Batman connected a specialized diagnostic tool from his utility belt to the device, careful not to disturb its operation while analyzing its programming. The question is when. Is this operating on a timer, or waiting for some external trigger condition? The diagnostic tool displayed its findings on his cowl's heads-up display. Lines of elegant code scrolling past in a silent waterfall of programming logic. Batman recognized elements of Enigma's distinctive coding style, but there were unfamiliar components as well, suggesting collaboration. Alfred, I'm sending you the code architecture. There are elements here I don't recognize, not consistent with Enigma's usual programming approach. Receiving now, sir. Yes, I see what you mean. The core logic is undoubtedly Mr. Enigma's work. His mathematical signatures are quite distinctive, but the implementation layer shows a different hand entirely. More elegant, more efficient, almost... Batman continued his analysis of the device, noting how carefully it had been integrated into the cooling system's control architecture. Whoever helped him has a deep understanding of HVAC systems and industrial control protocols. This isn't just programming knowledge, it's specialized engineering expertise. As he worked, the rain outside intensified briefly, its rhythm against the facility's roof creating a soothing white noise that seemed to complement the focused nature of his investigation. There was something almost meditative about this case, a puzzle of silence and mathematics, unfolding without the usual theatrical declarations or public threats. Alfred cross-ex-counsel Arkham's visitor logs for Enigma against individuals with backgrounds in industrial control systems, particularly HVAC engineering or data center infrastructure. Already in progress, sir. This may be of interest. Over the past 6 months, Enigma received regular visits from a Dr. Elena Felton, listed as a speech therapist consulting on communication disorders. Her background check for Arkham clearance lists previous employment with Gotham University's engineering department. Speech therapist with engineering experience, Batman mused, continuing his careful examination of the device. Check faculty records at Gotham University. See if there's any connection. A few moments passed, filled only with the gentle sound of rainfall and the soft hum of the cooling equipment. Then Alfred's voice returned with newfound clarity. Elena Felton was apparently a doctoral candidate in acoustic engineering at Gotham University until 3 years ago. Her dissertation focus was on ultrasonic communication methods for individuals with vocal disabilities. She left the program abruptly following an accident in one of the sound laboratories that left her with significant hearing damage and, according to medical records, permanent vocal cord paralysis. She can't speak, Batman realized, the pieces falling into place, and she's been visiting Enigma regularly, ostensibly as a therapist, a perfect accomplice for a newly silent Riddler. Alfred agreed. Her expertise in ultrasonic communication would provide exactly the technical knowledge needed for these transmission devices, and her Arkham clearance would give her regular, unsupervised access to Mr. Enigma. Batman completed his diagnostic scan of the device, now understanding more clearly what he was dealing with. This trigger mechanism is designed to activate when it receives specific ultrasonic confirmation signals from all 6 previous transmission points. It's a synced array. They all need to be functioning correctly for the cascade failure to initiate, which explains the mathematical relationships in the patterns, Alfred noted. They're not just puzzle pieces. their system integrity confirmations. And based on the timestamp in this code, Batman continued, the system check occurs every hour, on the hour. The next check is in, he glanced at the time display in his cowl, 17 minutes. If all 6 transmission points report correct functioning, the trigger will activate, Alfred concluded. Initiating the blackout protocol, Batman considered his options. Disabling this primary device might prevent the trigger, but could also alert Enigma and Felton that their system had been compromised. A more elegant solution presented itself. I'm going to modify one of the transmission points to send an incorrect confirmation signal, he decided. The Gothlink transmitter I secured earlier. I can alter its output just enough to fail the system integrity check without completely disabling it, thereby causing the trigger mechanism to postpone activation while it attempts to diagnose the problem. Alfred understood immediately, buying us time to locate Mr. Enigma and Dr. Felton. Batman carefully removed the Gothlink transmitter from his utility belt, using his portable diagnostic tools to make precise adjustments to its broadcast pattern. The work required delicate attention, changing the mathematical relationships just enough to fail verification without making the alteration obvious. The rain continued its gentle percussion against the facility as he worked, creating a soothing backdrop that helped maintain his focused concentration. There was something almost peaceful about this particular case, a battle of silent intellects rather than physical confrontation. Modifications complete, he reported after several minutes of careful work. I'll return this to the Gothlink tower and then continue tracking Felton's movements. We need to locate their operations center. I've been analyzing property records associated with Dr. Felton, Alfred replied. She maintained a university housing apartment until her departure from the doctoral program, but there's no record of current residence in Gotham. However, she did inherit a property from her grandfather approximately 4 years ago, a decommissioned signal tower on Gotham's eastern perimeter, originally used for maritime communications before the harbor was modernized. Perfect location for ultrasonic experiments, Batman observed, securing the modified transmitter and preparing to exit the facility. Isolated, designed for broadcast capabilities, overlooking the water where sound transmission characteristics can be studied in detail. The property hasn't drawn power from Gotham's grid in over 2 years, Alfred added, suggesting either abandonment or, more likely given our current situation, independent power generation to avoid detection. Batman moved through the continuing rainfall, his path back across the city somehow more contemplative than urgent. This wasn't a case of imminent destruction or direct threat to human life. Just a silent, elegant attempt to sever Gotham's digital connections. A disruption rather than destruction, forcing the city to experience temporary disconnection from its technological dependencies. After repositioning the modified transmitter at the Gothlink tower, Batman directed the Batmobile toward the eastern perimeter, where the Gothlink tower stood in silent isolation. As he approached, he could see the distinctive silhouette against the pre-dawn sky, a slender structure rising from rocky shoreline, its upper levels enclosed in what had once been signal processing chambers. No external signs of occupation, he reported as he parked the Batmobile in a concealed position several hundred yards from the tower. But the structure would naturally shield any internal light or activity from outside observation. The tower's original design included multiple shielded chambers for sensitive equipment, Alfred noted. Ideal for conducting experiments with ultrasonic frequencies without external interference or detection. Batman approached on foot, moving silently through the diminishing rainfall. The gentle precipitation had settled into a fine mist that hung in the air, creating a soft focus effect across the landscape and muffling what little sound existed in this isolated area. His cowl's scanning systems detected no traditional security measures. No motion sensors, no cameras, no alarm triggers. No electronic security, he observed. But that doesn't mean no security at all. As if confirming his suspicion, the specialized receiver at his belt began vibrating with gentle intensity. "Alfred, I'm detecting ultrasonic frequencies, different from the transmission patterns we've been tracking. These are more diffuse, almost like a field rather than a directed signal, a perimeter defense system using frequencies beyond human perception," Alfred suggested. "Elegant and consistent with Dr. Felton's expertise. One imagines conventional security measures would seem rather crude to someone who communicates through inaudible sound waves." Batman adjusted his cowl's sensors to map the ultrasonic field surrounding the tower. The pattern that emerged was sophisticated, concentric rings of varying frequencies that would be undetectable without specialized equipment. Not harmful frequencies, just distinctive enough that any disruption to their pattern would alert someone monitoring from within. "I need to move through this sound field without disrupting its pattern," he realized. "The frequencies are calibrated to detect solid objects moving within their range. Perhaps a gentler approach than your usual infiltration methods might be advisable," Alfred suggested. "Water and sound have interesting relationships, particularly in how sound waves propagate through moisture-laden air." Batman considered this as he studied the ultrasonic field patterns. The continuing mist created perfect conditions for sound propagation, while simultaneously offering a medium that might help mask his movement if approached correctly. Moving with exceptional care, he began making his way through the perimeter field, his every movement calculated to work with rather than against the ultrasonic waves. It was almost like a form of Tai Chi, each step, each shift in position, harmonizing with the invisible energies surrounding him. The rain mist helped, creating tiny droplets that scattered the sound waves in natural patterns that helped disguise his progress. It took nearly 15 minutes to traverse what would normally have been less than a minute's approach, but Batman eventually reached the tower's base without triggering any detectable change in the ultrasonic field. The structure's entrance, a weathered metal door set into the concrete foundation, showed subtle signs of recent use despite its deliberately neglected appearance. "I'm at the entry point," he subvocalized. "No visible security measures, but the door frame has been modified, likely with additional ultrasonic sensors. Given the sophistication of the perimeter system, one might assume the interior security follows similar principles," Alfred observed. "Sound-based detection rather than conventional methods." Batman examined the door with multiple scanning modes, eventually detecting the faint electrical signature of a custom security system integrated into the frame. Not ultrasonic this time, but something equally subtle. Pressure sensors calibrated to detect specific entry patterns. "It's a sequential pressure lock," he determined after careful analysis. "The door frame has been modified to detect the specific pressure pattern of someone's hand applying force in a predetermined sequence, essentially a tactile password. Dr. Felton's specialty appears to extend beyond sound to other non-verbal communication methods," Alfred noted. "Quite ingenious for someone who cannot speak conventional passwords." Batman studied the wear patterns on the door frame, barely visible even with enhanced vision. After several minutes of careful observation, he identified the likely sequence: subtle indentations, where repeated pressure had been applied in the same locations over time. With precise control, he replicated the pattern, applying calibrated pressure to specific points in what he believed was the correct sequence. The door released with a soft click, swinging inward to reveal a darkened stairwell. No alarm sounded, no lights activated, just the silent invitation of an open passage. Batman moved inside, closing the door carefully behind him. The interior was illuminated only by the faint glow of monitoring equipment several levels up, visible as a subtle blue reflection against the curved walls of the stairwell. As he ascended, Batman noted how the staircase had been modified. Sound-dampening materials applied to the walls and steps, creating a space of exceptional acoustic isolation. Even his exceptionally quiet movement generated virtually no sound as he climbed toward the light source above. The main signal chamber occupied the tower's upper level, a circular room once filled with maritime communication equipment, now transformed into a sophisticated workshop. Digital displays lined the walls, showing various waveform patterns and mathematical models that Batman immediately recognized as more complex versions of the patterns they'd been tracking. In the center of the room, a workstation hosted multiple specialized devices for generating and analyzing ultrasonic frequencies. But what caught Batman's attention most was the wall directly opposite the stairwell entrance. A massive display showing Gotham's digital infrastructure in real time, each connection point illuminated and color-coded. 6 points pulsed with particular intensity, corresponding to the transmission locations they'd discovered. Lines of connection between these points formed a geometric pattern that Batman recognized from the mathematical model they'd constructed. The blueprint for Enigma's Cascade Failure Protocol. "I've found their operations center," he sub-vocalized to Alfred. "They've been monitoring the entire system from here, but no sign of Enigma or Felton themselves." Before Alfred could respond, Batman's attention was drawn to a subtle change in the room's ultrasonic ambience. His cowl's sensors detected new frequencies entering the space, not from any equipment, but from a doorway leading to an adjacent chamber. Someone was approaching. He moved silently to a position of concealment as the door opened, revealing a slender woman whose measured movements suggested complete comfort in the specialized environment. Dr. Elena Felton moved to the central workstation with practiced efficiency, her attention immediately drawn to one of the displays where an alert indicator pulsed softly. Batman watched as she studied the display, her expression shifting from concentration to concern as she noted the anomaly in the Gothlink transmission, the modifications he had implemented to prevent the trigger activation. Her fingers moved across a specialized interface, adjusting parameters and running diagnostic sequences with impressive speed. After several minutes of focused work, she straightened, her expression now one of resigned understanding. Without speaking, without the ability to speak, she pressed a sequence on the workstation's main console. The large display showing Gotham's infrastructure shifted, the Cascade Failure Protocol that had been counting down now transitioning to a dormant state. Then, still without making a sound, she turned directly toward Batman's position of concealment and made a simple gesture of invitation, opening her hand palm upward, a universal signal of peaceful acknowledgement. "She knows I'm here," Batman reported quietly to Alfred, "and she's just voluntarily disabled the trigger mechanism." Seeing no reason to maintain the pretense of concealment, Batman stepped into view, his presence filling the circular chamber without any need for dramatic flourish. Dr. Felton watched him with calm assessment, showing neither fear nor surprise at his appearance. From a side table, she retrieved a tablet, quickly typing a message before turning the screen toward him. "You modified the Gothlink transmitter. Elegant solution. I assume you've determined the nature of our project." "A coordinated shutdown of Gotham's digital infrastructure," Batman confirmed. His voice modulated to a gentle timbre that respected the room's acoustic property, triggered through ultrasonic transmissions imperceptible to conventional detection methods. She nodded, typing another message. Edward believed Gotham needed silence, a respite from constant digital noise. Not destruction, just temporary quiet. "Where is Enigma now?" Batman asked. Her expression revealed a touch of sadness as she typed, "Still at Arkham. This was our shared project, but I implemented the physical components. He provided the mathematical architecture." Batman studied her as she continued typing. "We never intended permanent damage. The systems would have restored automatically after 24 hours. A demonstration of digital vulnerability, not a malicious attack." "A silent riddle about silence itself," Batman observed. She nodded, a faint smile acknowledging his understanding. Her fingers moved across the tablet again. "Edward has given up spoken riddles, found them inadequate, misunderstood. Mathematics speaks more clearly than words ever could, and you provided the expertise to translate his mathematical concepts into ultrasonic transmission protocols," Batman concluded. "A partnership based on shared appreciation for communication beyond conventional speech." Dr. Felton's expression softened as she typed. "We both lost our voices in different ways. Found new languages in silence and mathematics. Is that so wrong?" The question hung in the air between them, carrying no threat or challenge, just a genuine philosophical inquiry. Batman considered his response carefully, aware that the woman before him was not driven by malice or destructive intent, but by a complex relationship with silence and communication. "The method isn't wrong," he finally replied, "but imposing silence on others without consent would be, however elegant the mathematics behind it." She nodded slowly, accepting the distinction. Her fingers moved across the tablet once more. "Project already deactivated. All transmitters programmed to go dormant after 72 hours regardless. A riddle with built-in expiration." Batman moved to the central workstation. "Examining the now dormant Cascade protocol, I'll need to confirm the deactivation myself. And secure the transmitters." She made a gesture of acceptance, then typed, "Take what you need. The mathematics remain beautiful, even unimplemented." As Batman worked to verify the systems shut down, Dr. Felton typed one final message. "Tell Edward I'm sorry we couldn't complete our Symphony of Silence. Perhaps another composition, with proper permissions next time." Batman looked up from the workstation. "You know this means you'll need to accompany me to GCPD. Unauthorized access to critical infrastructure carries serious charges." Her smile held no resentment as she typed. "Of course, consequences are part of the equation, but I hope someone recognizes the elegance of what we attempted, not destruction, just temporary quiet in an endlessly noisy world." As dawn broke over Gotham, bathing the signal tower in gentle morning light, Batman contacted GCPD to arrange for Dr. Felton's proper processing. The rain had finally stopped, leaving behind a freshly washed city beginning to stir into its daily rhythms. The digital connections that might have been temporarily severed continued their ceaseless flow, uninterrupted by the silent riddle that had nearly played out across the ultrasonic spectrum. Later, as Bruce Wayne sat in the quiet of the Batcave, he reflected on the unusual case with Alfred. It wasn't really about chaos or destruction, he observed, studying the mathematical models they had reconstructed from the Riddler's transmissions. Just a statement about digital noise and the value of silence. Perhaps Mr. Enigma has found something worth exploring in his new approach, Alfred suggested, placing a fresh cup of tea beside the computer terminal. There is, after all, profound wisdom to be found in silence when properly appreciated. Bruce considered this as he sipped the fragrant tea, feeling the warmth spread through him like a counterpoint to the cool stillness of the cave. Iigmaz's methods were wrong, but his insight wasn't entirely misplaced. We rarely experience true digital silence anymore. Indeed, sir, Perhaps a reminder that even in this connected age, some puzzles are best solved in quiet contemplation. Alfred glanced at the mathematical patterns still displayed on the screen, their elegant relationships forming what almost resembled a silent musical score, though I imagine Dr. Felton will find the acoustics at Blackgate somewhat less than ideal for her continued experiments. Bruce allowed himself a small smile at the dry observation, his thoughts already turning toward his next patrol of Gotham's rain-washed streets. The city would never truly know the silent riddle that had nearly transformed its digital landscape, a puzzle expressed in ultrasonic frequencies and mathematical relationships rather than words. Perhaps, he reflected, that was fitting for a mystery that had valued silence above all else. As night fell once more, Batman returned to the city, moving through its familiar patterns of light and shadow, noise and relative quiet, with renewed appreciation for the delicate balance between connection and solitude. Somewhere in Arkham, Edward Nygma continued his own silent contemplations, crafting mathematical riddles that required no spoken words to express their elegant complexity. A different kind of riddler, speaking in a language few would ever truly hear or comprehend, and in that thought Batman found a certain tranquility. For in a city that never truly fell silent, there remained spaces between sounds where clarity could still be found for those patient enough to listen. In the aftermath of his latest transformation, Kirk Langstrom, Man-Bat, has taken refuge in Gotham Museum's closed natural history wing. Surrounded by preserved specimens and evolutionary exhibits, he contemplates his dual nature while trying to stabilize his condition. Batman approaches cautiously through the dimly lit galleries, hoping to help the brilliant scientist who finds himself increasingly lost between human rationality and bat instinct. Their encounter becomes a quiet meditation on identity and acceptance, set against the backdrop of silent dioramas and moonlight filtering through skylights. This next journey through Gotham's shadows explores the gentle resonance between two beings who each embody dual natures, one by choice, one by circumstance. As Batman moves through the hushed museum corridors, seeking not to capture but to understand, we follow his methodical steps into a world where science and nature blur into something both beautiful and melancholic. Rain fell in silver sheets across Gotham's skyline, transforming the city's harsh angles into a watercolor painting of blurred lights and gentle shadows. From his perch on the Gotham Royal Hotel's observation deck, Batman watched the storm caress the city he had sworn to protect. There was a peculiar tranquility to Gotham on rainy nights. Even the criminal element seemed to pause, as if listening to the rhythm of water against stone. Tonight, however, the peace felt deceptive, like the momentary stillness before lightning strikes. "Sir, I've compiled the witness statements from the East Side Tower incident." Alfred's measured voice came through the Cowl's communication system, a familiar anchor in the endless night. "Most curious. 3 separate individuals report feeling, and I quote, watched by something ancient. Yet security footage shows nothing beyond ordinary shadow patterns." Batman's gaze tracked across the cityscape, where raindrops transformed skyscraper lights into constellations of earthbound stars. The 4th incident this week. No physical harm, only intense fear. Something circling Gotham's highest points. A flash of lightning illuminated the observation deck, casting momentary clarity across rain-slicked surfaces. In that brief illumination, Batman noticed what he'd been searching for. A pattern of droplets on the glass barrier that couldn't have been formed by natural rainfall. Someone, or something, had traced letters across the transparent surface. "You are not alone in the dark." The message appeared only when viewed from a specific angle, visible briefly when lightning charged the air. Batman photographed it through his cowl's systems, the enhanced imaging capturing what ordinary eyes would miss. Microscopic traces of a substance mixed with the water. Alfred, I'm sending you a sample analysis. The message appears to contain trace elements of an organic compound. As Batman collected the substance, another lightning flash revealed a silhouette against the distant clouds. A winged form larger than any bird, its movements deliberate rather than instinctual. It vanished before he could track its trajectory, melding with the storm clouds as seamlessly as breath into night air. Sir, Alfred's voice carried a note of confirmation Batman had already anticipated. The compound contains genetic markers consistent with Dr. Kirk Langstrom's earlier formulas. It appears our old friend has returned to Gotham skies. Batman closed his eyes momentarily, feeling the rain trace patterns across his cowl. Man-Bat, the brilliant scientist whose serum had transformed him into a creature of primal instinct and raw power. Their previous encounters had always ended with Langstrom returning to human form, remorseful and determined to control his creation, but something felt different this time. The message left behind suggested a mind more lucid than the creature had previously displayed. His previous transformations were complete, Batman noted. Hal instinct, no reasoning, this feels in between. Perhaps, Alfred suggested, the good doctor has found some middle ground in his formula, a concerning development certainly, but potentially promising for his condition. Thunder rolled across the city like a gentle warning as Batman prepared to follow the direction the winged form had taken. The rain intensified, creating a soothing percussion against his armor as he fired his grapnel toward the next building. Swinging through Gotham's canyons of steel and glass was always a meditation of sorts, but in the rain it became something more, a dance with the elements themselves. Each arc and descent a surrender to gravity before technology reclaimed control. Wayne Tower loomed ahead, its spire vanishing into low clouds that pulsed with internal lightning. As Batman landed on its observation platform, a security guard approached with obvious relief. "Thank goodness you're here," the guard said, his voice barely audible above the storm. "Something's been visiting, scratching messages on the windows of the executive floors." Batman followed the man into the building, water streaming from his cape to form small, reflective pools on the polished floor. The upper levels of Wayne Tower offered a 360-degree view of Gotham, currently transformed into a dreamscape by the storm. On the windows facing east, another message had been carved with precision. "The night speaks to those who listen." "When was this discovered?" Batman asked, studying the perfect claw-etched letters. "About an hour ago. Security system caught something large landing on the exterior platform, but the cameras went staticky. By the time the image cleared, just the message remained." Batman examined the glass, noting the surgical precision of the cuts. This wasn't the work of a mindless creature, but something with extraordinary control and purpose. "Has anyone else been up here tonight?" The guard shook his head. "Just regular security patrols. Though," he hesitated, weighing his next words, "Dr. Tompkins was here earlier today. She had a meeting with Mr. Fox about medical supplies for her clinic. She mentioned something about unusual patient reports. People coming in with symptoms of extreme fear but no physical trauma." Batman's interest sharpened. Leslie Tompkins was one of Gotham's most dedicated physicians, running a clinic that served anyone in need, regardless of circumstances. She was also one of the few people who knew Bruce Wayne's secret, having helped care for him after his parents' deaths. "Thank you," Batman said, turning toward the window once more. "Secure the upper floors but maintain distance if anything returns. Do not engage." The guard nodded gratefully and retreated, leaving Batman alone with the storm and the cryptic message. He placed his hand against the glass, feeling the vibration of rain and distant thunder through the material. "Alfred, contact Leslie. Ask if she can meet." "Already done, sir," came the prompt reply. "Dr. Tompkins says she has information that might be relevant to your current investigation. She's at her clinic now." Batman took one last look at the message, memorizing every detail of its execution. The creature that had written it possessed not only Langstrom's knowledge, but an awareness of its own condition that previous Man-Bat incarnations had lacked. The implications were both concerning and intriguing. As he launched himself back into the storm, Batman felt the rain envelop him like a second cape, its steady rhythm creating a background meditation to his thoughts. The East End clinic where Leslie worked was miles away from Wayne Tower's luxury, but Batman moved through the differing neighborhoods with equal familiarity, the city's patterns as familiar to him as the lines on his palm. Leslie's clinic remained illuminated despite the late hour, a beacon for those who had nowhere else to turn. Batman entered through the roof access she always left unlocked for him, passing through empty upper rooms before descending to her private office. The doctor was reviewing patient files, her silver hair pulled back in its customary practical style, her expression thoughtful but not alarmed when he appeared. "I wondered when you'd show up," she said without preamble. "We've had 7 patients in 3 days with the same symptoms. Intense fear without physical cause, all encountered at Gotham's highest points." Batman moved to the window, watching rain transform the clinic's small courtyard into a small pool of reflected light. "Langstrom's back, but something's different this time." Leslie nodded, closing the file she'd been reviewing. "I suspected as much. Kirk visited me 2 weeks ago, you know. He was lucid but troubled, said he'd made a breakthrough with his formula, claimed he could maintain cognitive function during transformation." "That aligns with what I'm seeing," Batman confirmed. "The incidents show planning, communication, purpose, not the random attacks of previous episodes." Leslie rose from her desk, moving to retrieve another file from a locked cabinet. "There's something else you should know. Not all the encounters have been frightening." She handed him the file. "This came in yesterday. A child from the Diamond District. She was on the balcony of her parents' penthouse when she encountered what she described as a man with wings who watches over the city." Batman opened the file to find a drawing, a child's rendering of a winged figure silhouetted against a full moon. Unlike the typical depictions of Man-Bat as a monster, this image conveyed something more nuanced. A sentinel, head raised as if listening to distant sounds. "She said he spoke to her," Leslie continued. "Told her that sometimes we become what we fear most so we can understand it better." Then he left a feather and flew away. The doctor retrieved a small evidence bag from her desk drawer. "I took the liberty of preserving it. The feather inside wasn't actually a feather at all, but a delicate structure that mimicked one, a modified hair follicle with the genetic properties of both human and bat tissue, engineered with Langstrom's unmistakable brilliance. He's evolving the formula," Batman said quietly, studying the specimen. "Creating something that's neither fully human nor fully bat. And perhaps that's the key," Leslie suggested, her voice carrying the compassionate wisdom that had guided many of Gotham's lost souls. "Kirk has always struggled with duality, the rational scientist versus primal instinct. Maybe he's finally finding balance, rather than swinging between extremes." Batman considered this as the rain continued its gentle percussion against the clinic windows. Man-Bat had always represented unleashed instinct, a warning of what Bruce himself could become if he ever surrendered completely to the darkness within. The possibility that Langstrom might have found some equilibrium between his dual natures was both hopeful and unsettling. "The victims all report fear, except for the child," he noted. "Why the difference?" Leslie smiled slightly. Children often see without preconception. Where adults see a monster, a child might see a guardian. Perception shapes reality, especially when it comes to fear. The wisdom in her observation resonated with something deep in Batman's psyche. How often had he used fear as both weapon and shield? He had shaped himself into a figure of terror for those who preyed on innocence. Yet that same fearsome presence offered comfort to victims and children. "I need to find him," Batman said, returning the feather to Leslie, "before someone gets hurt, including Langstrom himself." "He left something else for the child," Leslie added, retrieving a sealed envelope. "Said to give it to you when you came asking questions. I haven't opened it." The envelope contained a single sheet of paper with a complex molecular diagram drawn in precise detail, modifications to Langstrom's original formula, annotated with timestamps and observations. At the bottom, a message was written in the same careful hand as the window etchings. "Wayne Observatory. When the storm peaks, come alone. Some reflections require darkness to be seen clearly." Batman studied the formula, recognizing Langstrom's attempt to maintain cognitive function while in transformed state. The modifications were elegant, demonstrating the scientist's genius, but also revealing something new. The transformation was becoming more stable, less a temporary condition and more a permanent evolution. "He knows," Batman said quietly, realizing the implications of the message being addressed to him at Leslie's clinic. "That your Bruce Wayne?" Leslie asked with gentle directness. "Kirk is brilliant, and in his current state, he's operating with both human intellect and enhanced senses. More importantly, he's known you for years in both identities. Is it so surprising he might make the connection?" It wasn't surprising, but it was concerning. Secret identities existed for good reason. They protected not just the individual, but everyone connected to them. Yet the message suggested not threat, but invitation, a shared confidence rather than leverage. "The storm is supposed to intensify around midnight," Batman noted, glancing at the weather patterns displayed on his cowl's heads-up display. 3 hours from now," Leslie nodded. "Enough time for you to prepare, and Bruce," she added, reverting to his true name with the privilege of one who had known him since childhood. "Remember that Kirk is fighting his own battle between identities. Perhaps that's why he's reaching out to someone who understands that struggle." The observation carried weight that Batman couldn't dismiss. He had devoted his life to maintaining the division between Bruce Wayne and Batman, controlling when each persona emerged, and Langstrom's condition forced transformation outside his control. Yet now he seemed to be finding some middle path. "I'll keep you updated," Batman promised, moving back toward the way he had entered. "Be careful," Leslie called after him, "and remember, sometimes understanding requires us to see through another's eyes, no matter how alien they might seem." The rain had settled into a steady rhythm as Batman returned to the rooftops, the earlier downpour gentling into something almost meditative. He used the time to return to the Batcave, where Alfred was already analyzing the formula Langstrom had provided. "Fascinating work," the butler commented as Batman arrived, droplets of rain still clinging to his cape like constellations. "Dr. Langstrom appears to have introduced a stabilizing agent that allows for partial cognitive retention during transformation." Batman removed his cowl, becoming Bruce Wayne in the sanctuary of the cave. "He's maintaining awareness during transformation, potentially unable to fully return to human form." "Indeed," Alfred nodded, displaying molecular comparison charts on the main computer. "Based on these modifications, the transformation appears less volatile, but more permanent." Ruth studied the data, seeing the elegant desperation in Langstrom's work. The scientist had always sought a cure for his condition, but these modifications suggested he might be accepting it instead, learning to live with the transformation rather than reverse it. "He wants to meet at the Wayne Observatory at midnight," Bruce said, examining the weather patterns displayed on an adjacent screen. "The storm center will be directly overhead at that time." "A rather dramatic choice of venue," Alfred observed dryly, "though I suppose someone who transforms into a bat-human hybrid can be forgiven a flair for the theatrical." The observation drew a rare smile from Bruce. "We all have our methods, Alfred." "Indeed, sir. Though some of us express our inner demons with expensive equipment rather than genetic modification." Alfred placed a cup of tea near Bruce's hand. "I've taken the liberty of updating your cowl's sonic defenses. If Dr. Langstrom's condition has stabilized as these formulas suggest, his echolocation abilities may have enhanced as well." Bruce nodded in appreciation, simultaneously reviewing the history of his encounters with Man-Bat. Kirk Langstrom had never been a villain in the traditional sense, merely a scientist whose ambition had outpaced his caution. Each encounter had ended with Langstrom returned to human form, remorseful and determined to control his creation. But permanent transformation would change everything, not just for Langstrom, but for his wife, Francine, and the life he had built. "Alfred," Bruce asked quietly, "do you think it's possible to live between two identities? Not alternating between them, but existing in both simultaneously?" The butler paused in his work, regarding Bruce with the perceptive wisdom earned through decades of service. "I believe, Master Bruce, that you have been doing precisely that for many years now. The question is whether you see your dual nature as balance or division." It was a profound observation that Bruce had no immediate answer for. He had always considered Bruce Wayne and Batman as separate entities, necessary masks for different aspects of his mission. The possibility that they might be integrated rather than divided was both unsettling and oddly liberating. "Prepare the Batwing," he said after a moment of reflection. "The observatory is isolated, and the storm will make grapnel transport risky." "Already done, sir," Alfred replied. "And might I suggest the thermal adaptive suit? The observatory's altitude combined with tonight's weather system will create quite dramatic temperature variations." As Bruce changed into the suggested equipment, he found himself contemplating Langstrom's message. "Some reflections require darkness to be seen clearly." The scientist had always been drawn to bats for their ability to navigate darkness through means other than sight, using sound to create mental maps of their surroundings. Perhaps this meeting was Langstrom's attempt to help Bruce see something that remained invisible in the light. The Batwing cut through the storm clouds like a silent phantom, its advanced systems compensating for wind shear and lightning discharges with minimal intervention required from its pilot. Bruce let the aircraft's gentle motion center his thoughts, preparing for a confrontation that felt more like a consultation than a conflict. Wayne Observatory stood isolated on Gotham's highest peak, a structure built by Thomas Wayne decades ago to study astronomical phenomena away from the city's light pollution. Now it sat surrounded by storm clouds, its dome a darker shadow against the turbulent sky. As the Batwing approached, Bruce scanned the structure for signs of Langstrom's presence. The observatory's main power appeared offline, but auxiliary systems maintained minimal function, enough to operate the dome mechanism without full illumination. Perfect conditions for a creature comfortable in darkness. Bruce landed the aircraft on the observatory's reinforced platform, designed originally for equipment delivery rather than visitors. Rain pelted the Batwing's exterior as he prepared to disembark, the storm intensifying as predicted. "I've established connection with the observatory's remaining active systems," Alfred informed him through the cowl's communication link. "Limited functionality, but I can operate the dome remotely if necessary." Keep communications open but passive, Bruce instructed, pulling the cowl back over his features, becoming Batman once more. You wanted this meeting private. As you wish, sir. I shall be discreetly omnipresent, as always. The observatory's entrance yielded to Batman's override codes, revealing an interior illuminated only by emergency lighting and occasional lightning flashes through the dome's observation ports. The main telescope dominated the center of the circular room, its massive form pointed currently at the storm-filled sky overhead rather than distant stars. I wasn't sure you'd come alone. The voice seemed to emanate from everywhere and nowhere, carrying human intonation but with harmonic undertones no human vocal cords could produce. Batman didn't turn immediately, allowing his senses to map the space around him, pinpointing the speaker's location near the dome's highest point. You asked for a private meeting, Langstrom, he replied evenly. I'm respecting that request. Movement whispered overhead, the subtle displacement of air by large wings controlled with precision that spoke of extensive practice. A form descended gradually from the shadows, landing on the telescope's main support strut with perfect balance. The creature before him was unmistakably Kirk Langstrom, yet transformed beyond previous incarnations of Man-Bat. Where earlier versions had been monstrous and feral, this being displayed an unsettling harmony of human and bat characteristics. His overall form remained humanoid, but covered in sleek brown fur that seemed almost elegant rather than bestial. The face balanced human features with bat-like aspects, larger ears, adapted nose structure, eyes that caught light differently than human ones. Most striking were the wings, no longer awkward appendages, but graceful extensions that folded against his body with natural ease. Thank you for coming, Batman. Or would you prefer Bruce in this private setting? Batman remained still, neither confirming nor denying. You've stabilized the formula. Langstrom made a sound that might have been a laugh, though it carried sonic elements beyond human hearing range. Not stabilized, accepted. As a difference. He gestured to his transformed body. This isn't a temporary condition anymore. It's evolution. Evolution implies improvement, Batman observed. Is this truly better than human form? Langstrom tilted his head, a gesture both scholarly and animal in its curiosity. Better? Perhaps not. Different, certainly. More honest in its way. He moved along the strut with perfect balance, his movements fluid and confident. We all wear masks, Bruce. Mine has simply become literal as well as metaphorical. Batman studied the transformed scientist, noting the intelligence that remained clearly present in his gaze. You've been leaving messages across Gotham, visiting its highest points. I needed to understand my new capabilities before making contact, Langstrom explained. And yes, I wanted to be seen, to observe reactions. Fear is fascinating from the other side, isn't it? Something you've known for years. The message at Wayne Tower, Batman prompted. The night speaks to those who listen. What did you mean? Langstrom spread his wings partially, the movement graceful rather than threatening. Exactly what it says. In this form, I hear Gotham differently. The vibrations of buildings settling, the harmonics of wind through skyscrapers. The city sings at night, and almost no one listens. He paused, head tilting again. Except you. You've always listened to Gotham's darkness. Lightning flashed overhead, temporarily illuminating the dome in stark white light. In that moment, Batman saw something in Langstrom's expression. Not the madness he had anticipated, but a profound calm, almost meditative. Why contact me now? Batman asked. Why not go to STR Labs or contact Francine? Because you understand liminality, Langstrom replied simply. Living between states of being, Not quite one thing, not quite another. He gestured to Batman's cowl, man and symbol, human and myth. I needed someone who wouldn't immediately try to cure me, someone who might understand that some transformations cannot, perhaps should not, be reversed. The observation cut closer to Batman's core identity than he had expected. He had always viewed his dual nature as necessary compartmentalization rather than integration. Bruce Wayne and Batman serving different functions in his mission. The attacks, Batman redirected. People experiencing fear without physical harm. Not attacks, Langstrom corrected gently. Encounters. I needed to understand how people perceive this form. Fear was the predominant response. Yes, but not universal. He shifted position, moving to perch on the telescope's eyepiece support. The child at the penthouse saw differently. No preconceptions, no ingrained fear response. She saw possibility. Batman recalled the drawing from Leslie's clinic. The winged figure as sentinel rather than monster. Your formula affects the mind along with the body. How can you be certain your own perceptions remain reliable? Langstrom nodded, acknowledging the valid concern. I can't be, entirely. That's partly why I've sought you out. I need an external reference point, someone whose judgment I trust. His wings adjusted slightly, compensating for a gust of wind that penetrated the dome's seams. The formula enhances certain cognitive functions while altering others. My sensory processing has expanded exponentially. My emotional responses are differently calibrated, meaning I experience emotions with greater intensity but less identification, Langstrom explained. I feel deeply but not always in ways I can name using human terminology. It's rather like trying to describe color to someone who perceives an entirely different spectrum. Thunder rolled overhead, its vibrations causing subtle shifts in the observatory's ancient structure. Batman noticed how Langstrom's ears moved minutely, tracking sounds beyond human perception. You're navigating by echolocation, Batman observed. Even in this conversation, Langstrom's expression shifted to something approximating a smile. Yes, I'm seeing you in ways beyond visual. Your heartbeat, the microscopic movements of facial muscles beneath your cowl, the way sound waves interact with your body. It's intimate in a way human interaction rarely achieves. The revelation should have felt invasive, but instead carried an odd resonance. Batman had trained himself to read others through minute cues. Langstrom was simply doing the same through different means. The formula you sent through Leslie, Batman said. You've made it permanent? Not irreversible, Langstrom clarified, but stable. I remain in this form by choice now, not compulsion. I can shift back toward humanity but never completely return. His wings folded closer to his body, a gesture almost like a shrug. The question has become whether I should rather than whether I could. And Francine? Your colleagues? Your life? A shadow of genuine grief passed across Langstrom's transformed features. That's the true cost. Francine knows I've communicated with her, though not face to face. She's processing. As for my work, I've arranged extended leave. Beyond that, he trailed off, looking upward where the storm continued to intensify above the dome. Beyond that lies the unknown, which is why I needed to speak with someone who has already walked the path of dual existence. Batman moved closer to the central telescope, careful to maintain non-threatening body language. You believe I have answers. I believe you have experience, Langstrom corrected. You've maintained two distinct identities for years, serving different purposes but ultimately integrated within one consciousness. I'm attempting something similar but without your years of practice. The characterization was accurate enough to give Batman pause. He had never thought of his dual identity as integration, always as separation, compartmentalization. Bruce Wayne and Batman as distinct entities sharing a physical form. Yet Langstrom saw it differently, as harmony rather than division. "What do you want from me, Kirk?" Langstrom dropped from his perch to land soundlessly on the observatory floor, maintaining a respectful distance. Up close, the harmony of his transformation was even more apparent, neither fully human nor completely animal, but something that honored both origins. "Understanding," he replied simply, "and perhaps permission." Permission. To exist, Langstrom clarified. To remain in Gotham. To find purpose in this form, rather than viewing it as a condition to be cured. His wings shifted, catching the dim emergency lighting in ways that created subtle patterns across the observatory floor. "I'm neither villain nor monster, Bruce. Just a man who has transformed beyond conventional parameters. I need to know if you can accept that, if there's place in your conception of Gotham for something neither human nor beast." The question penetrated deeper than Batman had anticipated. Gotham had always contained multitudes. Humans, metahumans, visitors from other dimensions. Yet each occupied a defined category in his mental framework. Langstrom was proposing something different. Existence between categories. A state of perpetual liminality. What would you do? How would you live? "As I have begun to, in the spaces between," Langstrom answered. "I cannot return to my human life completely, but I retain the knowledge and purpose that defined Kirk Langstrom. I would continue my research, though through different methods. Observe Gotham from perspectives few can access." He paused, considering. "Perhaps even help, in ways uniquely suited to these capabilities." "Help how?" Batman asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "This form perceives Gotham differently," Langstrom explained. "I hear conversations carried on wind currents from blocks away. I sense temperature variations that indicate hidden rooms or recent movements. I can traverse the city using air currents in ways no human technology can match." His expression grew more serious. "I'm not proposing to become a vigilante, Bruce, but I could be. An observer, a sentinel. Someone who watches from different heights and hears through different frequencies." The storm overhead had intensified to its predicted peak. Thunder, now a nearly continuous rumble that vibrated through the observatory's structure. Lightning illuminated the dome in strobing flashes, creating a natural rhythm that seemed to underscore the significance of the conversation. "You would maintain control?" Batman asked. "Previous versions of your formula eventually overwhelmed your human consciousness." "That was the fundamental flaw," Langstrom acknowledged. "I treated the transformation as something to be controlled rather than integrated, fighting against the bat nature rather than harmonizing with it." He spread his wings partially, the gesture emphasizing his point. "This version achieves balance. Neither fully human consciousness nor completely bat instinct, but a synthesis that honors both." Batman considered the implications. A being with Langstrom's intelligence combined with Man-Bat's sensory capabilities could indeed be a powerful ally, or a devastating opponent if that balance ever shifted. "How can I be certain this equilibrium will hold?" "You can't," Langstrom answered with simple honesty. "No more than I can be certain your own balance between Bruce Wayne and Batman will remain stable through all future circumstances. We are both experiments in duality, Bruce. The difference is that yours was chosen, while mine began as accident, though it has become choice, through acceptance." The frankness of the response was oddly reassuring. Langstrom wasn't offering false guarantees, just authentic acknowledgement of shared uncertainty. "Why Gotham?" Batman asked. Why not start somewhere new where Man-Bat isn't already known and feared? For the same reason you remain, Langstrom replied. It's home. It's where I understand the patterns, the rhythms, the meaning beneath surface appearances. His expression softened slightly, and perhaps because Gotham, more than most places, has learned to accommodate the strange and unusual, to find value in what others might fear. The observation carried undeniable truth. Gotham had always been a city of shadows and secrets, of hidden depths and unexpected resilience. Its citizens had grown accustomed to the extraordinary dwelling alongside the mundane. The child you spoke to, Batman said, recalling the drawing in Leslie's file. You told her, sometimes we become what we fear most so we can understand it better. Was that meant for her or for yourself? Both, Langstrom admitted, and perhaps for you as well. He moved toward one of the dome's observation ports, gazing out at the storm-lashed city below. We've all chosen to embrace what others fear, haven't we? You became the night itself, turning fear into purpose. I've become a creature of instinct and darkness, finding harmony rather than horror in the transformation. The parallel wasn't perfect, but it carried enough truth to resonate. Batman had, indeed, shaped himself into a figure of fear, not out of desire to terrify, but to channel that fear toward constructive purpose. Langstrom appeared to be attempting something similar with his own transformed state. What happens now? Batman asked. Langstrom turned back from the viewport, his expression calm despite the storm raging outside. That depends on whether you see me as threat or possibility. I've come to you out of respect, Bruce. You've defended Gotham against genuine monsters for years. I needed you to understand that I don't intend to become one of them. The sincerity in Langstrom's voice was unmistakable, even through its inhuman harmonics. Batman studied him carefully, looking beyond the transformed exterior to the essence of the man he had known, a brilliant scientist whose ambition had led to unexpected consequences, but whose core ethics had remained intact throughout previous episodes. I can't promise I won't monitor your activities, Batman said finally, but I accept your intentions. Relief visibly passed through Langstrom's posture, wings relaxing slightly from their previous tension. That's all I can reasonably ask. Acceptance, not blind trust. What about the messages on the buildings? Batman asked. They caused fear. An unintended consequence, Langstrom acknowledged. I was experimenting with communication methods, learning how to express complex thoughts with these new physical capabilities. He gestured to his transformed hands, which retained remarkable dexterity despite their altered form. I won't continue leaving public messages. The intention was never to frighten. Batman nodded, accepting the explanation. And Francine, will you attempt reconciliation? Something profoundly human passed across Langstrom's features, a mixture of hope and resignation that transcended his transformed appearance. Eventually, when I've fully accepted this new existence myself, she deserves to meet me as I am now, not as I'm still becoming. The wisdom in that decision suggested Langstrom truly had maintained his human capacity for empathy and understanding, even as his physical form had evolved beyond humanity. The storm overhead began to show the first signs of passing, its rhythm changing from constant thunder to occasional rumbles. Dawn was still hours away, but the storm's peak had passed, symbolic timing that neither man could have orchestrated. I should go, Langstrom said, moving toward one of the dome's maintenance hatches. The storm's clearing will make me more visible to anyone watching the observatory. Kirk, Batman said as the transformed scientist prepared to depart. The message you left at Wayne Tower. You are not alone in the dark. Was that meant for Gotham, or for me specifically? Langstrom paused, his expression thoughtful. Perhaps both. Gotham has always had guardians in its shadows, you chief among them. But even guardians need reminders sometimes that darkness can hold communion as well as isolation. He spread his wings, their span impressive in the confined space. We see differently in darkness, Bruce, not just with technology or evolved senses, but with perspective. Some truths can only be perceived when direct light doesn't overwhelm them. With that philosophical observation, Langstrom activated the maintenance hatch and slipped through the opening with fluid grace. Batman moved to the viewport, watching as the winged figure soared into the diminishing storm, riding air currents with effortless precision before disappearing among Gotham's architectural canyons. "Sir?" Alfred's voice returned through the cowl's communication system. "Positive. I monitored the conversation as requested. Most illuminating. Your assessment?" Batman asked, knowing Alfred's insight often penetrated to the heart of complex situations. Dr. Langstrom appears to have achieved something rather remarkable: acceptance without surrender. He has integrated his transformed state rather than fighting against it, while maintaining his essential humanity. The butler paused briefly. "Not unlike someone else of my acquaintance, though the physical manifestations differ somewhat." Batman allowed himself a small smile at Alfred's perceptive comparison. He sees Batman and Bruce Wayne as integration rather than division, two aspects of the same being rather than separate identities. "A perspective worth consideration, perhaps," Alfred suggested. "Whereas all are authentic expressions of who you are, Master Bruce, neither is more real than the other, merely suited to different purposes and contexts." It was a profound observation that resonated with unexpected depth. Batman had always conceptualized his dual identity as necessary compartmentalization, Bruce Wayne and Batman, as distinct entities serving different functions. But Langstrom's perspective offered an alternative interpretation. Not division but harmony, different facets of a unified whole. "The storm is passing," Batman noted, watching as patches of clear sky began appearing between cloud formations. "I'll return to the cave." "Very good, sir. I shall have refreshments waiting, suitable for either Batman or Bruce Wayne, whichever returns." Alfred's gentle humor contained wisdom that echoed Langstrom's earlier words. As Batman returned to the Batwing, he found himself contemplating the transformed scientist's philosophical observations about darkness revealing what light conceals. Perhaps his own divided existence wasn't division at all, but simply different aspects of the same truth, visible through different perceptual frameworks. The Batwing rose from the observatory's platform, its silent engines carrying him back toward Wayne Manor as the storm continued its gradual dispersal. Below, Gotham stretched out like a living organism of light and shadow, its patterns forming a language all its own for those who knew how to read it. Somewhere among those patterns, a winged figure navigated by senses beyond human capability. Neither monster nor man, but something that honored both origins. Batman found himself curious about what Langstrom might observe from his unique vantage point. What aspects of Gotham might be visible only through such transformed perception? As dawn approached, Batman returned to the Batcave, the sanctuary where his own transformations between identities typically occurred. Tonight, however, the transition felt less like changing masks and more like shifting focus. Different aspects of the same essence rather than separate entities sharing one form. "Productive evening, sir?" Alfred inquired as Batman emerged from the Batwing. "Unexpectedly so," he acknowledged. Removing his cowl with practiced ease, Langstrom has found balance in his transformation. Not a cure, but acceptance. "A powerful distinction," Alfred observed, helping Bruce remove the armored suit. Accepting circumstances rather than fighting against them often reveals possibilities that remain hidden when we resist reality. The wisdom in Alfred's statement echoed Langstrom's earlier observations about perception and darkness. Bruce found himself contemplating how much of his life had been devoted to resisting rather than integrating, keeping Bruce Wayne and Batman carefully separated rather than acknowledging them as complementary aspects of his complete self. "Alfred," he said quietly as dawn light began filtering through the cave's hidden apertures, "do you think it's possible to live as both Bruce Wayne and Batman without division? Not separate identities, but unified purpose expressed through different means." The butler paused, regarding Bruce with the perceptive wisdom earned through decades of service. "I believe, Master Bruce, that you have always been both simultaneously. The division exists primarily in how you conceptualize yourself, not in your essential nature." His expression softened with genuine affection. The boy who lost his parents that night wanted both justice and meaning. Batman provides the former, Bruce Wayne the latter. Neither is dispensable if you wish to remain whole. It was a profound observation that Bruce had never fully considered. Perhaps his rigid compartmentalization had been unnecessary, a defensive mechanism against the fear that one identity might overwhelm the other, rather than acknowledging both as essential components of his complete self. As he ascended the stairs toward Wayne Manor proper, Bruce found himself contemplating Langstrom's final words about darkness revealing truths that light conceals. His encounter with the transformed scientist had illuminated something within himself. The possibility that integration, rather than division, might offer a more sustainable path forward. Outside, the storm had completely passed, leaving Gotham washed clean in early morning light. Somewhere in that freshly illuminated city, Kirk Langstrom was navigating his new existence, neither fully human nor completely other, but something that honored both origins while discovering new possibilities in the spaces between. Bruce paused at the manor's east-facing windows, watching as sunrise transformed Gotham's skyline from shadowed mystery to clear-edged reality. Both perspectives revealed truth, he realized. Neither complete without the other, each valuable in its own context. "Some reflections require darkness to be seen clearly," he murmured, recalling Langstrom's written message. In that quiet moment between night and day, between Batman and Bruce Wayne, he understood what the transformed scientist had truly offered. Not just acceptance of Langstrom's continued presence in Gotham, but a mirror in which Bruce might see his own divided nature more completely. The realization brought neither dramatic revelation nor immediate change, but something more valuable. A gentle shift in perspective, a new possibility to consider as he moved forward. Batman would continue to guard Gotham's shadows, Bruce Wayne its daylight hours, not as separate entities, but as complementary expressions of a unified purpose. And somewhere among Gotham's highest spires, a winged figure might occasionally be glimpsed against the moon or stars. Not monster, but sentinel, watching from heights and perspectives few could access, listening to the city's whispered secrets carried on night winds. Not alone in the darkness, but in communion with it, finding meaning in the spaces between defined categories, purpose in transformation rather than division. As Bruce turned from the window to greet the new day, he carried that understanding with him, a gift from one who had found harmony rather than conflict between seemingly irreconcilable aspects of self. Batman and Bruce Wayne, darkness and light, fear and hope, not opposing forces, but complementary aspects of the same essential truth, reflected differently depending on where one stood to observe it. In that quiet acceptance lay not surrender but strength, The recognition that wholeness comes not from rigid separation, but from honoring all facets of one's nature. It was a lesson worth contemplating, as dawn gradually transformed Gotham from the city Batman protected to the one Bruce Wayne helped build. Different perspectives on the same beloved home, each revealing truths the other might miss. And so our tale of Gotham comes to an end. Let the gentle night embrace you as you drift toward peaceful dreams, knowing that somewhere in the darkness, the Dark Knight watches over his city. If you're not asleep yet, we will now play the ambience of Gotham City at night to help you fall asleep. And if you were just listening to our tales, we will see you next time. Good night and sleep well.